Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope everyone is doing well. I had a conversation with a brother yesterday, and we were talking about the situation with African American Muslims in America and some of the issues that we have as African Americans. And we talked about a lot of different aspects of the issues pertaining to um, the African American situation. And, we talked about the various sects. And, we talked about, the brother was talking about, and I know the source of where this stuff was coming from, but he was talking about issues of Aqidah are not the most important thing that African American Muslims have to deal with. That there's so many other things that we need to first focus on besides Aqidah. So we talked about that. Um, I, I'll leave that for another video. That portion of it. One of the things that, for those of you who have seen some of my other videos, you've heard me talk about the lack of identity that African American Muslims have. That when we begin to learn Islam and we begin to attach ourselves to what we understand or what we think is correct, then normally we will then take on the identity of whatever geographic location that ideology comes from. Case in point, when you look at the brothers who follow, say, the Jamaat Tabligh, African Americans specifically, after a while, they began to dress like they're from Pakistan. They began to talk like they're from Pakistan. They began to eat more Pakistani food. They're going out on Jamaat for 40 days or however long they're doing it now. And they began to take on that persona. Likewise, the brothers who study in the Khalij area, they take on the identity, the clothing, the imama, and these different things of the Saudis or the people in the Khalij area. I remember when I was studying in Egypt, and the Houthis were attacking the students in Damaj, and some of the students, they were able to get out of Yemen, and you could see them coming a mile away down the street because of the way they dressed. They dressed, I mean, if you know anything about the people who study or have studied in Yemen, they love to wear the thobe with the blazer, and they wear the imama tied up a certain way. You can see them coming a mile away, alhamdulillah. Some of the best and most studious brothers that I've ever dealt with, sat with, had the pleasure of meeting, have been some of the Yemeni students. Those, if you ever have the opportunity to sit and take from them, those that are qualified, I would encourage you to do that. But again, they dress like the people of Yemen. As African Americans, our identity oftentimes is manufactured for us because it's a commodity. Our culture, our existence is a commodity. It's always been a commodity. When you look at, as I've said in other videos, if you look at hip hop, let's take hip hop, for hip hop in its inception was, you could say, a positive thing. It unified people. It was fun. There was lots of diversity in it. And then it sort of morphed into a movement of Black consciousness where Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, what's that other brother? Paris. Just so many Brand Nubian, just so many different groups that carried a more conscious message and not a destructive message. KRS-One, self-destruction, that whole movement was elevating Black people as a whole. I'm not talking about Muslims. I mean, just Black people, trying to pull them out of what they were in. And then it just so happens, as that movement was really moving and making some changes, NWA comes. And then after NWA, all these other gangster rap, nihilistic, murder, kill, death, drug deal, B word, N word, all these groups. Do you think that stuff came out of nowhere? Do you think that it is just organic and the record companies and the people who have the power determine what you hear and who you hear and what's promoted? So even when we organically create something, it's oftentimes commandeered, monetized, taken over, and turned into what it was not intended to be. I remember one time, and I don't want to say the brother's name. I had called one of the, I guess you would say, one of the more popular students. I called him on the phone, as we used to talk semi-regular, and I just called him on the humble one day, and I asked him, I said, okay, I called him, and he seemed sort of preoccupied, like he was I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm reading right now. I said, oh, okay. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, the brother's reading some knowledge. So obviously I asked, what you're reading? He said, I'm reading a book, and the book that he was reading was connected to his secular bachelor's degree. Again, if I tell you what his degree is in, you might know who I'm talking about, and I don't want to out the brother like that. But I said, why are you reading that? He said, I have to get a job. I said, you have to get a job? Why do you have to get a job? He said, to be honest with you, he said, the Arabs and the Pakistanis don't want me because I'm Black, and the African Americans, the Salafis, can't afford me. He said, I have a family to provide for, and they can't pay me the wage that I need to be paid in order to maintain that and just be the full-time imam. So I need to get a job. SubhanAllah. He said, and then the degree that I have, he said, if I were in a Muslim country, the degree that I have would allow me to be a judge in Islamic court. Would allow me to be a judge. I let that sink in. He would be qualified to be a judge in Islamic court, is what he told me. He said, my colleagues from other countries, from Pakistan, from Indonesia, from wherever they come from, when they return back to their country, they are received and given status. They're given position. They are set up to be able to benefit the people and teach the people and give the people what they need. He said, when I came back, he said, I was received as, oh, that's just that N-word who went to study a little bit. He ain't nobody. This is how we approach our own people when it comes to those who have taken the time to study and to learn. And I do think that a large part of that comes from our lack of culture. What do I mean by that? Historically, through slavery, African Americans could not read. We weren't allowed to read. We would be murdered or maimed if we read. There has been a history of diverting us away from education. And those of us who made it into higher education sometimes got lost in the sauce and became disconnected from their own people. And sometimes those people were weaponized against their own people. Our schools are historically underfunded. Our schools are historically underfunded based on the taxes that are paid in the community that the schools happen to be in. So when you look at the more affluent schools, those schools are in a higher tax bracket. Their parents are more accomplished, or they have more accolades or letters, before or after their name, which affords them the ability to pay higher taxes, which then goes toward teacher salaries, first edition books, technology, and all these things. Whereas the African Americans have always been, at best, second class citizens. Oftentimes, we're talking about as a collective in our communities. And again, with the manufactured culture, we're taught that we are less than. And that goes back to, before I forget this thought, this goes back to what I was saying with how we receive our own Tulab al-Ilm, or our own scholars, how we view our own scholars who come from our people, who go overseas and study for X amount of years and then come back, and they're just looked at as, oh, that's that guy that went overseas and studied a bit, or instantly warned against. Man, I could go in so many different directions with this, but we are often taught to not value our own. There could be two students, one from Saudi or Syria or Yemen or even Indonesia, and an African American. They could be standing side by side. They could have the same degree. They were colleagues, but one is viewed as sheikh and the other one is viewed as, okay, he studied a little bit, but no big deal. I've seen that with my own eyes, and I've had students tell me that that's how they've been treated. And that stems from our lack of self-esteem as a collective, our lack of efficacy, our lack of culture. We don't value ourselves, and because we don't value ourselves, other groups don't value us either. And again, that's a whole different conversation. At some point, we are going to have to we're going to have to understand that we have to have our own organic, managed, accepted culture, a culture that comes from us, that supports us, that puts us in positions of success with the moral compass of Islam. Because you can have all these things that I'm naming, but if you don't have Islam and the moral compass and the guidance away from shirk, then in essence, you don't have anything, because the akhirah is the real life. This is just a passing time. But there's nothing in our religion that says that our time here can't be successful, that we can't be successful as a collective. So, one of the things that I've said to parents before, especially some of the foreigner parents, they seem to have a preoccupation with careers, what career their sons or daughters get into. And depending upon the culture, they have to be a doctor. They have to be an engineer of some type. And if they're not, then they're culturally disgraced amongst their own people. Well, African Americans, our situation is a little bit different. The one thing that I would say, and this is what I experienced personally, and I'm glad I experienced college before studying Islam and traveling overseas. And I went to college and did my bachelor's and my master's, completed my bachelor's and did my master's after I came back from overseas. And what I found was being grounded in Islam aided me in how I filtered information, because there were many younger Muslims that I met that coming in the door, they were Muslim, but going out the door, they were either doubting or they were like, nah, I'm not really Muslim anymore, because they got overwhelmed by the ideologies and the different theories and the different experiences and the different things that they were taught, and they weren't grounded in Islam. Therefore, they lost their Islam at the price of gaining a degree, a bachelor's degree in whatever, and having whatever career. They lost their Islam. So we understand as Muslims that that's not success. I want to give some solutions, or what I feel or what I understand to be solutions, to parents and educators. If you have Muslim children, you have to ensure that before they go to any college or university, that they are grounded in Islam, understanding Tawheed, understanding that everything that they are taught needs to be filtered through an Islamic lens. What aligns with Islam is accepted. What's not, or what does not align, is rejected. And it doesn't have to be a battle. It doesn't have to be a battle of the classrooms. It just needs to be understood. When I came back from Egypt and I hit the university that I went to, I used to bang with the professors on certain things they would say. Man, I used to go hard and sit right in the front of the classroom, and I would give it to them. And sometimes my grades would reflect it, and I would have to battle to get the grade that I deserved. And, it was almost like an uphill battle. I was successful. I was on the dean's list several times. For those that don't know, I have my bachelor's and my master's in sociology, and I started working on my doctorate degree in an Islamic university. But when I was doing my bachelor's and master's, I used to go hard. Because I'm standing up for haq. I'm the only Muslim in the class, and they got to, they have to know what I'm on. But then, a brother, and I always give a shout out to the brother Ayari, who I believe is in Dubai right now. He's been teaching over there for a while. Yeah, I remember he said to me one day, he said, "Aqid, do you want to graduate, or do you want to debate with these people, or do you want to fight with these people? Like, what's your goal?" And I said, "Well, graduation." He said, "Stop fighting and arguing with these people." He said, "You're not going to change their mind, and you're there to get that paper and then go do what you need to do." And, when he told me that, and I knew that, but sometimes when you hear the reminder, sometimes when you hear it verbalized from somebody else, it hits different. I knew that, but it hit different when he said it. I was like, man, I think that brother's right. So I started playing the back of the classroom. And the professors would say things that they know would be an issue for me. And I would just look at them. And it got to the point that they'd be like, "Nothing?" And I'd be like, "Nope, nothing. Whatever I needed to write on the test to get the A, whatever." But my point is that I didn't digest it as haq. Some of the things that I knew were deviant, I knew weren't correct, everything filtered through that Islamic lens. This, the precursor to the university would be whatever level of school your child happens to be in now. If it's kindergarten, grade school, elementary school, junior high, high school, whatever the case may be, as a parent, you need to make sure that they understand the difference between how we digest and how we understand truth and how the non-Muslims do. They need to understand and be firmly grounded in Tawheed, and definitely in Aqidah. Not to go back to that too much, but the brother that I had the conversation with yesterday, he made this statement to me, Aqidah is simple. He said that to me. He said, Aqidah is simple. I said, is it? I said, the Prophet ﷺ said there's 73 different sects. 72 of them are in the hellfire. So that means, and from those 72, I think the scholar said, you have sub groups that extend from those major 72. So it's around 2,000 or more groups with different Aqidah. So how is Aqidah simple? Obviously, it's not simple for everybody. For those of you who studied in Egypt, because I know some of you are going to see this video. For those of you who studied in Egypt, chime in and tell people if I'm lying or not, if I'm being truthful with this. In Egypt, every year there was an Arabic book fair, and that Arabic book fair was a monster. I mean, it was like a campground with different various buildings on it, full of books in Arabic. And I want the Americans or the English speaking, non-Arabic speaking Muslims to hear this. These buildings that the books of knowledge, or that the religious books, I'll say religious books, they filled buildings, north to south, east to west, top to bottom, shelf to shelf. The books, these books are not translated into English. Volumes and volumes and 20 volumes of one issue, 30, 40 books, all on one simple issue, Aqidah, fiqh, talking about a hadith, something. I mean, books on top of books on top of books on top of, and I could keep going on. Books that are not translated. I say that to say what? We, or the people who are non-Arabic speakers, who can't read these books, who don't understand them, don't know how to go about finding out about these books, if these books even exist, or how to approach these books. What we have in America or in the West is a pinch of pepper in a sea of salt in regards to what's out there as far as our religion. So Aqidah is not simple. It's a science. It's something to be studied and understood along with the other ulum, all of the sciences, hadith, fiqh, whatever the case may be. These are not simple topics. We can make it simplistic in our mind, but when you go to like the Arabic book fair and you see thousands and thousands and thousands of books that at that time didn't have any access to, couldn't really, I could read the titles, but getting into the nuances of it and understand, I had no clue. Didn't know how to use an Arabic dictionary to look up words, didn't know the difference between lugawi and shar'i words, how words apply linguistically versus how words apply in the sharia. Not knowing who to ask, but having to build that framework of people. Even now, when I have questions, I know who to call. I have sources. But the average American Muslim may not. So we have to learn that we have to put ilm first, knowledge first, fahm and understanding second, or first. Really, the two go hand in hand. And then we need to understand, again, as African American Muslims, we have to have a culture that encompasses. The culture is in the Islam. The Islam is the shell. Everything else is on the inside. We have to learn to have our own. We have scholarship here in the West. We have scholars from our own people. We have tulab al-ilm, students of knowledge, from our own people. We don't have to go outside looking, asking questions all the time when we have people here that are qualified. I do not think, nor am I extending that or saying this in any way, shape, fashion, or form, that we abandon the scholars overseas. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We need them. But we need to be able to filter what they say into, or apply what they say to our understanding here. And the intermediaries between the major scholars and us as laymen are going to be our students of knowledge and our scholars that we have in the West. They're going to be the ones who are going to go ask those detailed, nuanced, and complex questions that pertain to us in our situation, and be able to apply Islam or tell us what we need to do in order to overcome challenges and obstacles that we face as a people. So I hope I'm clear in that. There's so much more that I want to say and directions that I want to go, but I'm going to leave this there. I hope this is clear. Oh, one other thing. It was either Sheikh Wasil Abbas or Sheikh Salim Tawil from Kuwait. I remember him saying, one of them, I can't remember which one, they said, when you know what Islam is, then you know what Islam is not. This goes back to our truly understanding what Islam is. And I will say this 1,000 times over, like it who like it, hate it who hate it. The Nation of Islam, that Aqidah is outside of the fold of Islam. So anybody that subscribes to that Aqidah, Allah came in the person of Farad Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad is a prophet or a messenger. There is no Akhirah. Ramadan is in December to offset Christmas and all this other kufr, this disbelief, this bid'ah, this innovation that this group brings has to be rejected. It has to be known and understood by the African Americans that we do not view them as Muslims or that Aqidah. Whoever falls under that Aqidah falls outside of the fold of Islam. Allah did not come in the form of a man. White people were not created by the big-headed scientist named Yaqub on some crazy island somewhere. Elijah Muhammad is not flying around up in space on Ezekiel's wheel. And there's so many times that I've run into African Americans, and one of the first things they ask me is about Malcolm X, which, alhamdulillah, he's Muslim, Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, and some of the different things that group pushes and promotes. Does that negate the good that they did? No, it doesn't. But the good that they did does not override the shirk akbar that they promote. I hope I'm clear in that. Yes, they cleaned up communities. Yes, they started businesses. Yes, they helped clean people up and bring a harmony into the community. But they also taught the people shirk, which will land those same people in the Jahannam, in the hellfire. So did they really help them? Understand, when you know what Islam is, you know what Islam isn't. So go to your local masjid, and sit and listen and learn, study Arabic, just learn the religion. And as you learn the religion, learn about Tawheed, learn the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Don't get bogged down with worrying about sex, SECTS, sex, groups. Learn from the Quran and the Sunnah. Learn from the people who teach from the Quran and the Sunnah. Ask questions. When people tell you things, first questions come out of your mouth. Where you get that from? What hadith is that in? What ayat in the Quran is that in? Where do I read this? Don't just take what people tell you. Do not just take what people tell you. They have to have evidence. Take that evidence back to the Salaf. How did the Salaf as-Salih, the first 3 generations of Muslims, how did they understand these issues? That will be or put you on the proper path. I sort of got off track because I said I was going to give some solutions to parents and educators. I'll leave this one here. This is already 30 minutes, and I know sometimes we don't have the longest attention span to listen to things, so I will leave it here. Maybe the next video I'll get into some other solutions. If you want to hear them, then tell me in the comments if you want to hear them. If you want to hear some of my different ideas of what we should do. If I don't hear anything, then I guess it doesn't want to be heard, and I won't worry about it at this time. Like, subscribe to video, subscribe to my channel. And I only speak on things that I feel like I understand or feel like I know or feel like are beneficial to people. Pass the video to people, because the more people that, if you find benefit in what I'm saying, the more people that hear it, the more people will benefit. And hopefully, maybe it'll spark something in somebody's mind or remind people of their responsibilities to their children and to the community. Maybe that'll happen. Allahu Alam. Allahu Alam. Barakallahu feekum. Wa jazakum Allahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.